Hey there, I'm Sharon Welch, and welcome to A Brave Journey, the podcast to help you throw out those legacy belief and identity stories that you've been lugging around on autopilot for decades, so you can jump back in the driver's seat of your aliveness again. When you change your mind, you change your life. Are you ready? Let's get into it. It'll be fun. So here I am in the foothills of the Palas volcano in Central Valley, Costa Rica. I was really inspired to record an episode while I was hiking in these hills. And what I was thinking about was the importance of rest and integration after periods of big growth, big muscle movements in your life. And I've been experiencing this personally, really up close and personally over the last couple months. And so I wanted to have a conversation about that. As many of you know, I'm coming up to the tail end of 4 months traveling through Central America throughout the winter. I went on this trip for a lot of reasons. In one part of my business world, it's fairly slow in the winter, the location dependent part of my world. And so I had a little bit of freedom to travel. Also, there's something about Central America that really speaks to me. It's probably a place that at some point I will settle. So I really wanted to see how the area really was. So I've been going to different countries, spending a month at a time. And then part of it, it was just something that I felt called to do as part of my personal journey in figuring out my own truth, figuring out my own authentic path, giving myself some space away from my normal patterns and systems to really question and recurate my own beliefs, life stories, inner dialogue, all of those things. And so I have done a lot of growing on this trip. And when I ended up here in San Isidro de Gracia, which again is in the Central Valley of Costa Rica, so far away from the beaches where you might normally find me, I was a little alarmed when I arrived at my Airbnb because the place was quite a bit more rural than I expected. And I had sort of a little bit of an internal panic attack because it was going to be really a thoughtful logistical process to be able to get to a restaurant or a shop or a grocery store. So I've been here a few days, and what I've realized is this is exactly what I needed. This quiet, this peacefulness, this lack of needing to or feeling FOMO or compelled to go see all of the things that could be seen in this area. And it's something that clearly the universe knew that I needed. So here I am. And so as I was walking, thinking about this today, I felt it was something that was really good to bring into this forum to talk about because I think many of us, particularly if you come from a corporate environment, we always get the messaging that, if you're not growing, you're dying, or, if you're not moving ahead, if you're stagnant in your career, then, you're a has-been. And so we feel this compulsion to constantly get to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing. And what that really does is that prevents us from the joy and satisfaction of experiencing what is right now. So growth is really, really important, and we should grow in some way or another our entire lives. And also, we need time for that growth to take root in us, to become part of who we are, to integrate in how we show up in the world. And that can't happen if we are in a constant state of forward movement. And so we need that stillness. We need that peaceful quiet to be able to reflect back on what we learned, to really soak it in and really let it integrate into who we are. And it can feel uncomfortable. When we are still, that's when we almost have to look in the mirror. That's when we have to address any thoughts and conversation that's coming up in our head about questioning our value, questioning our sanity, maybe. And so it can be really uncomfortable to just be still, to just rest. And so that's why a lot of us don't do it. So then growth becomes another vehicle to numbing. So we've talked in the past about how you can numb yourself in a lot of ways. You can be a workaholic, which, that sense of busyness all the time could be an example of that. It could be food. It could be substances like alcohol. It could be, it could be shopping. There are a million different things that we as humans find as ways to numb ourselves so that we don't have to feel the icky parts, the uncomfortable parts, the undesirable parts. But unfortunately, when you try to numb out those things, you also numb out the good. You numb out the love, you numb out the joy, you numb out the awareness of just the beauty and abundance that's around you. And I think that's the part that we don't recognize. So when we all have an opportunity, or in my case, are somewhat forced to be quieter, to be still, it can cause a little bit of panic in us. But if you think about it, if you look at in the plant world, plants do all of this huge amount of growing, typically in the springtime. And then there's a period where they stop growing and they bear fruit, and they just grow the fruit. The fruit is the outcome of the growing that they did coming out of winter into spring. And so for us, as maybe we take on a new job, maybe we go to a yoga retreat, maybe we do a lot of, self introspection, maybe we finished a degree, whatever it is that we've done, we need to pause and take a breath and really let that settle in. A really good example that I've had just this winter. So I knew to a certain extent I was going to be a little bit constantly on the move as I was traveling from place to place. But, arguably, I had a month in each place that I could really soak in the community and the environment that I was in, except for January. In January, I was in 6 different places in January. Now, it was self-inflicted. There was a retreat that I was going to in Mexico, and some of the logistics for getting to and from the retreat and then getting to my next 1-month stop, there were some logistics that caused me to need to move around quite a bit. But here's the interesting thing where it really occurred to me how important rest and integration was. So I have this amazing experience at this retreat. I did an amazing amount of personal work of what I'll call radical, authentic relating with other people, being vulnerable, really being in many ways just spiritually ripped open, look at it all, reorganize it, build it up bigger, better. So you come away from something like that and you are a little bit raw, and you do need some amount of time to integrate. And so as I left that retreat, I went back to Mexico City. Mexico City is a very, very busy, chaotic place. Probably wasn't the best idea for me to I thought I would take a week to reintegrate, but maybe that wasn't the best opportunity to do that. The universe gave me a little boost. I caught some sort of chest cold after that, so the wind was a little bit out of my sails anyway, so I didn't feel a huge motivation to do a bunch of touristy things in Mexico City. Still wasn't really the best thing. So as I moved on in my journey, I ended up in another country, in Panama, but it was in a big city environment. It was the only big city environment I had planned the whole time. And again, not recognizing how much I was going to need the space to really rest and integrate what I had gotten out of that retreat, and arguably what I had been getting out of this entire travel experience. It just had been lost on me. And I went through a period, and this may happen to you, I went through a period, some weeks after this big major spiritual muscle movement where I felt a little lost. I felt a little, I felt maybe a little level of depression, or I started to really question myself. The critter brain really came out and was causing me to question if I even knew how to do adulting, if I even knew how to make effective decisions, and could I really live the life that I wanted, all of the little gremlins that come out. And I felt really bad about that. And I spent a couple days really sort of living in that. And I did, for maybe one of the first times ever, reach out to my tribe to ask for help, which is something that, as a recovering superwoman, and many of you will understand this, is very difficult to do. And we don't often do it because the story we've told ourselves is, we're the ones that people come to for the answers. We're the ones that people come to because we have all of our stuff together. We're this example for how to live some sort of empowered, blemish-free life, which is all made up, right? Of course. And in fact, it turns out we're doing a disservice to the people who are looking to us for inspiration when we put those kind of filters on the lives that we really have. So I'm learning this. And so I did reach out and I did connect with my community to work through those feelings. And this should not be a surprise to you now, as we've talked about this. The number of people who not only were there to support me, but could absolutely empathize and identify with what I was going through because they've gone through the same thing, were either going through it right now or had been through it before and thought they were the only ones. So there's this theme that I keep seeing that tells me we need to stop hiding from each other, number one, because we're all having this human experience and there are many parts of it that are in fact common and we can support each other in those. So I lived that month in the sort of city environment and I thought, okay, great. I stepped away from the retreat and I've just kind of been doing my own thing. And so, yeah, great. Get right back to it. I'm going to go to Costa Rica and I got to check out, all of these new places where, I might want to live. And to get here and realize, oh, this is a different environment yet again. And here I am literally out in what you may not see behind me is just miles, kilometers, I guess, of coffee plantations and sugarcane farms, dirt roads. So I was a little freaked. And as I was walking today and just soaking in the quiet, or as I've been laying down to go to sleep at night, where the quiet is so quiet, it almost feels like a physical weight on your ears. I recognized that this is the rest and integration that I needed. I'm away from the tourist attractions. I'm away from city traffic and distractions. I'm away from, large numbers of people and things to navigate. I really am largely with myself to really think about all of the things that I've learned so far on this journey and be able to sit with them, the good and the not so great, the uncomfortable things too, the quiet, and allowing those things to come up and just letting them have their moment and figuring out where they fit or where they don't in my life. And what a gift, what an accidental gift to have this opportunity to be in this place where I'll be for a month to really take the time to figure out what it all means. Because prior to this, what I now understand, I was, if you understand anything about human design, if you don't, take a look at it. It's pretty interesting. I have a sacral authority. So in my life, the way things work the best is when I go with my gut, my true gut, not the gut that I've litigated, not the gut that I went to go Google to see if I was right. My gut, my hell yes, hell no, right when something happens is almost always the right answer. And when I came out of the retreat and you're on this high of, and you'll recognize this if you've done any kind of, if you did the fire walk with Tony Robbins or you know, you finished a rock and roll half marathon, whatever it is you've done, you're on this high, you have this inertia that you're like, oh, that was amazing. What's the next thing I can do? And the next thing I can do. And that can be great. And there was all of these opportunities as I came out of this retreat for me to do that. There were other retreats I could sign up for. There were projects I could work on. There were things I could write. There were podcasts I could record. There was all of these things. There were trips I could take, and they all looked so enticing. But what my gut was saying was, yes, or yes, but there's something you need to do first. Yes, but, and I couldn't quite hear what came after the yes. I just knew that it wasn't a full on yes, and that what I needed to do was not commit to those things. I couldn't really hear what it was though. And it wasn't until I got here truly that I realized it was the yes, but rest and integrate first. So I think it's interesting when you really start to open your eyes to all of the places where you've been on autopilot and all of the ways that you have maybe numbed out some of the less desirable parts that you might have to travel through to get to your authentic identity. It's really interesting how when you start on that journey and your eyes become more and more open, there's so much more that you cannot unsee. And there's so much more that you're able to hear that was probably always there, but you couldn't hear before. And I think the important thing about that is when those situations present themselves, or when you finally do hear that quiet voice that tells you something surprising or new, have the courage to go along with it, at least for a little while. See where it leads you. Nothing is permanent. You can always change your mind. But if you fail to turn down that interesting looking road, or you fail to take advantage of that enticing but maybe a little scary opportunity or experience, you may actually be missing out on that key turning point that's going to make all the difference for that next step in your journey. And I've certainly recognized that over my time on this trip, especially. And I think through that, I will take back so many things back to my more typical existence as I head back to my typical usual home in the United States. There are so many things that I want to take back with me related to the actual physical rhythm of my life. When I wake in the morning, when I go to sleep at night, what I do during the day, how I feed myself, how I move my body, how I interact with the world, how I am in relationship with other people. All of that I want to take back. And I have no illusions about it's going to be this amazing Pollyanna panacea when I get back, where all of a sudden I'm living my best life and I'm implementing all these things I've learned. Of course, I'm living my best life because, as we all know, right in this moment, every single day, we are all living our best life if we think about it that way. But what I'm saying is, all of these things that I want to remember that are so impactful to me now, it's so easy for them to become drowned out by regular life when we go back to that. And so it's going to be more important than ever for me to be present and to practice mindfulness in however I can make that work. And it works differently for everybody. There is no, this is the right way to be mindful. This is the right way to change your inner dialogue. This is the right way to be present. It's very personal, and you may have to try on many different things to get that done. But I know I'm going to have to do that. And so I think it will be such an interesting experience, that reentry. I've been able to delay it quite a bit than a number of other people that I went to the retreat with, for example, that had to get right back into that. I've been able to delay it for a couple months. So it will be interesting when I have that reentry back into my typical life to see how challenging that is to hold on to that, and what are the tactics and what are the methods that I'll have to use to do that. And I will absolutely share those with you as they come about. Maybe they'll help you. So I wonder, have you ever experienced that where you have this major breakthrough, this aha moment in your life about who you are and what you want to be doing? You accomplish this major thing, and the next thought is, okay, and what's next? Okay, and what's next? The thing is, there will always be something next. So you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to wonder about that. You can go ahead and live right now in this. Enjoy and celebrate this thing right now that you have, that you did, that you accomplished. The next thing is always going to come, but why take away from this moment right here when all of that's automatic? So those are the things that I've been thinking about as I am getting used to this unexpected sabbatical from the chaos, to appreciate the peace and the quiet and the opportunity to rest and integrate. And please take that with you. And hopefully that will pop into your mind the next time you have just another amazing growth moment. And before you go rush off and conquer the next mountain, I hope that you'll take the time to celebrate where you are right now. Hey, thanks for listening to A Brave Journey. I'm so happy you were here. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow and leave a review, and share this with a friend who could benefit too. See you next time.